This comes from Hoops Hype, and Hoops Hype had reported that the Dallas Mavericks attempted to trade for Bojan last year. I think we all know that. There's kind of been speculation that they offer two first. We had James Edwards on a couple of weeks ago. He said that wasn't true to his knowledge. But who knows what's true, really? With Pascal Siakam off the market now, I think the Mavericks are still going to try to trade for a Bojan Bogdanovic. I think the Mavericks right now want to make their front court a little bit stronger, and I think Bojan could fix that issue that they're having this season. Not to say that they're having a bad season. They're having a pretty good season. But I think for the Mavericks, they've had interest in Bojan since he was a member of the Utah Jazz, right? And when I was reading this Hoops Hype article, they had hinted that Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Grant Williams, and draft compensation could be on the table to upgrade that power forward position, right? I know a lot of you guys like Jaden Hardy. I don't know how you guys feel about Grant Williams. He's one of those guys that I think some Pistons fans wanted. Josh Green has been better. His rookie year, he was pretty bad, but I don't know if that was because of Rick Carlisle not playing him a lot, but he's gotten better each and every year. Those are some of the guys that they're willing to move off of if they do make a trade for a power forward. Whether you want to categorize Bojan as a power forward or not, he could play both forward positions, in my opinion. But I think those players move the needle a little bit if you're Detroit. I think Grant Williams would be interesting, but I don't really know if I'm really in love with that. Josh Green, I think he's a young player, up and coming, but do you really need him? I'm not entirely sure. Dallas to me just seems like a team that's always really active at the deadline. But the Pistons asking prices, I think 2 firsts still this season. I don't know if you're going to get 2 firsts for Bojan. I don't. You might get a first and a young player, and I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. I really wouldn't. But I don't know, maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't know. I think Bojan has value, but I don't really know if teams around the NBA are going to bounty up 2 first-round picks for a guy that's 34. And he missed the majority of the season with a calf injury. We didn't see him until December this season. And he recently got hurt, but he's since been back in the lineup. It was the same calf that was bothering him. But if I'm a Pistons fan, I'm not opposed to trading Bojan. I think for the right price, he's gettable. But for me, I would want at least a first-round pick. I'm not saying lottery, but at least a first-round pick in the future, near future, I should say, and maybe a young player that helped this team out more. I think there's a lot of teams, not only the Mavericks, I think any contender will probably be calling the Pistons about Bojan, but my gut tells me that the Pistons will not trade Bojan this deadline. Tells me that they're going to be stubborn. They're going to hold on to him because they want to, quote unquote, compete. Whatever the hell that means. But do want to go to the comment section with you guys, see what you're saying about possibly moving on from Bojan and the Dallas Mavericks' interest with Bojan Bogdanovic. Marie Shaw, I don't want Grant Williams. We can do better. Yeah, I mean, Grant Williams, he's not a bad player by any means. But to your point, yeah, they probably could do better. I don't really know where they're at with Derek Lively. I think that's a guy that they want to keep. And it's the last thing we need is another center, but he's a really nice player, good rim protector. But look at the Mavericks team. They don't really have a whole lot to offer. And that's the problem. Right, but it's not just the Mavericks. I think there's a lot of teams in the NBA. I mentioned earlier, a lot of contenders. They probably want Bojan Bogdanovic, and who wouldn't want a guy that can score 20 a game, good free throw shooter, hell of a 3-point shooter. I think there's interest from a lot of contenders. I just think the Pistons are being really stubborn with their asking price right now. Maurice also asked, how about Kevin Huerter in a first from the Kings? I wouldn't mind Red Velvet in a first. I wouldn't. Kevin Huerter's a hell of a shooter. Hell of a shooter. And he's younger. And if you get a first from the Kings, I feel like the Kings are a team that, much like the Knicks, they want to make a deep playoff run too. And they had a hell of a season last year. I think they wouldn't be opposed to making moves. We saw that they were willing to, pull the trigger for Pascal Siakam, but Siakam wasn't really feeling it, I guess. I think the Kings will be pretty active at the trade deadline to try to get better, but I think Bojan would be a really good fit on their team too. I don't know. I really don't. I wouldn't mind that trade though. I really wouldn't. D-Buck. I would trade Bojan for another scoring option, but if you trade him without that, Cade's game will get impacted by more double teams. Yeah, I think you do want to address the scoring issue if you do want to move on from Bojan. I don't really know what he can get you in the open market. I still think a first isn't unreasonable. I think teams would be willing to give you a future first. But like, need a future first within the next couple of years, like a 2025 or 2026. Like, I don't want 2029, don't want a first round pick, 5 years out. I think the Pistons would want a future first in the near future, I should say. And I don't think that's too much of an asking price for a guy that can, either start for you or come off your bench. Alan, I wouldn't take Williams or Green. Oh, yeah, fair. I mean, if you don't like what the Mavericks have to offer, I think there's a lot of other teams in the NBA that would love a Bojan Bogdanovic. I really do.